Then let's get started. I'd like to introduce, hi everyone who joined this session. I'd like to introduce our amazing speakers. They are accomplished women, successful women, and let's start with Alexandria Butler. She's also known as Lexi B. Alexandria Noel Butler, affectionately known as Lexi B, is considered one of the Silicon Valley candid and most prominent voices. Her thought-provoking advice and opinion on how to create a more equitable work and environment stem from her own experiences working in some of the most popular tech companies. In April 2017, Lexi B founded Sister Circle, Black Women in Tech, a community that supports Black women in tech companies and related professions. Lexi's main mission is to inspire people to create their desired journey by understanding their purpose and life goals. In her own words, people deserve to live the life that caters to their strengths and passions. And fun fact about Lexi, since she does not like chocolate, her favorite cookie is chocolate chip cookie without chocolate chips. Process is simple. Make a chocolate chip cookie dough, and right before you add your chocolate chip, set aside some dough for Lexi. It is the best butter cookie ever. I love that.
It's so great. It's so great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Our next panelist is Diane Kenyon. Diane actively pays it forward by career coaching individuals in transition, mentoring, participating in the Austin technology and nonprofit communities. Diane is a manager director in project services at Charles Schwab, where she's also strengths coach, advisor to Employee Resource Group, chair of the Public Affairs Committee, and sponsors several nonprofit relationships and volunteer events for Schwab. I actually want to take this moment to thank Charles Schwab for supporting Women Tech Network conferences. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Fun fact about Diane, with COVID-19 and shelter in place, she misses her commute time activities, normally 10 to 15 hours per week. She normally talks to her friends and family, listens to her favorite podcasts, holds career coaching calls, and listens to her books. She doesn't miss traffic though. And I do understand because I don't miss the traffic either. Hi, Diane. We can't see you, but can we hear you? Can you say hi?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna. We're excited to be here. Schwab is so blessed to be able to participate and to have such breadth of exposure with your conference today and all the women and the technology professionals. While we're an investment company, over almost our IT department, our technologist is almost 9,000 people. So we're excited to participate and hope to fill some positions.
More people should know about that. We are glad to have you. Thanks for your support. Meet Lori Nishiura Mackenzie, co-founder at Stanford VMware Women's Leadership Innovation Lab, lead strategist, diversity, equity, and inclusion at Stanford Graduate School of Business. Lori brings 20 years of marketing strategy and business management experience at companies including Procter & Gamble, Apple, eBay, and PalPay. She's a board member of the Alliance for Girls and Watermark and an advisor to the Women's Startup Lab. Fun fact about Lori, her two COVID office mates are Havanese dogs. One named Ponyo, after the Miyazaki film, and one named Pippin, after the Hobbit. Where are they?
They're in their own office.
Oh, wow. Okay, dogs that have their own office. That's cool. That's cool. Awesome.
My bedroom.
I see they occupied your bedroom not to prevent you from the panel. Okay, awesome. Welcome, Lori. Very excited to have you with us.
Thank you.
And meet Siri Chilazi. Siri's life's work is to advance gender equality in the workplace through research and research translation. As a scholar, Siri studies what works to the level playing the field and close gender gaps in organization. As an advisor and speaker, she brings research insights to practitioners and organizations ranging from startups to multinational corporations through speaking, training, and workshop. Fun fact about Lori, In addition to being a full-time gender researcher, she's also a fitness instructor. She's been in the fitness industry for 14 years and teaches various formats from Pilates to cardio yoga to step aerobics and high-intensity interval training. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, next time we do a conference, I should invite you to do some workout in the morning for us or something like that. Yes. What do you think?
I think that should be on the agenda of every conference anywhere.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. That was very surprising for me to discover. So thank you a lot, ladies. I'm super excited. You come from so many different diverse backgrounds and your experience is impressive. And I want to start our conversation with a question that is, how did your life change during the COVID-19? Who wants to be the first to answer this question? Maybe Siri, you want to start.
Sure, I'll go first. The good news is I get to spend a lot more time at home with my wonderful husband. And also the other good thing about COVID for me has been that I've had a lot more time to spend on research and writing, since there's no distractions in the form of fewer meetings and less travel.
Right, awesome, thank you. Diane?
I think my life and my thoughts are much calmer now. With no traffic and a lot of filtering of the news and a lot more time outside. So hashtag calmer.
Wow, awesome. I love that. Lexi?
I think my life has been very crazy. So another fun fact of mine is that I actually I'm currently at Twitter as the Senior Program Manager for Privacy in the Legal Department. And my first day of Twitter was actually my last day in the office because it was the day that our CEO decided to close the office down because of COVID. So my life has been very interesting because I've had to onboard a whole new job in the middle of COVID. And that's been a very intriguing, winding experience that we can definitely take offline in all those details. So there's that. And there's also family. I think that COVID gives you time to reflect on what's important in your life. A lot of people have suffered from COVID. A lot of people have died. And so really making sure that I'm very connected to my family that do not live in California, and really trying to balance out the worry and the anxiety of how can I support people that I love who may be going through something that is not as bad as what I'm going through. I always tell tech people we have to really look at the silver lining, the fact that I can go to work, i.e. just get up from my bed, right, and I can log onto a computer and my salary is not affected. My daily life is not affected. My benefits and insurance aren't affected. And I say all that to say that we as a tech community really need to come together and see how can we use that privilege to help others, because a lot of people who are not in this privileged position are really being affected by this pandemic.
Right. I just wanted to also to mention that Twitter is one also of our partners that is supporting the conference. Yeah. So we're super excited to have Twitter with us along with Charles Schwab. Thanks a lot. And yeah, that's interesting what you mentioned. And I do agree that to a certain extent, we are privileged to be able to work from home, even though it's challenging at the same time. That's right. Lori, are you here? We don't see you.
Oh, you don't?
No, we don't. But if you can turn on your cam, and that would be great. And yeah, maybe you can share with us how did your life change during the COVID-19?
You know, this is the first time in modern history where all three major institutions have been under one roof. Home, right? Family, school-age kids at home, and work. And what that means for me is that all my work has to consider support managers. And for my own life, you know, I'm taking care of my parents who really we're trying to get them not to go out. I have teenage kids doing Zoom high school at home. And so I think the complexity of how to make life work, as Lexi said, not just for the people in our organizations, but who used to be or are touched in our lives. And so for me, it's been a time of complexity and trying to expand my ability to be passionate.
Right. Yeah, compassion. We need it, and we have to we need to work on that more and to become more compassionate, and COVID-19 is definitely teaching us that. So, Diane, you're an information technologist with 20 plus years of leadership experience in IT who lived through not just one crisis. How is this one different? And what have you learned from your previous experience? How did it help you to respond timely to the crisis caused by COVID-19?
So I've had a lot of IT management experience and dealt with many hurricanes and that type of natural crisis that target a geographic region, and then they die out very quickly over time in comparison to this, right? With the pandemic being global and spreading, it's so much different. And I think of the two things that are the most different are there's a lot more unknowns. We're all still learning a lot about this and what it means to be safe and how to best protect ourselves and our families. And it's just a broader span. You know, it's not a hurricane impacting 4 states in the USA. It's across the entire world. And so it's very different from that perspective. But in many ways, it's the same. And those learnings are things that apply. When something like this, a hurricane or a pandemic happens, it becomes very much in focus. Everything else is deprioritized. When we talk about essential and non-essential, almost everything becomes non-essential when there's an emergency, and we treat it like an emergency. And so in addition to the focus that we bring, we also need to increase our communication. So the decision makers are having stand-ups and they're checking in 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, and you're having this ongoing, how are we doing? What should we change? Where do we pivot? What new information do we have? That's the same. It's spread out over a much longer period of time. And then more importantly for our customers and for our employees is the increased communication. And anytime there's a disaster, a hurricane, a pandemic, a major change that's affecting a broad set of people, communicating to them and keeping them informed, even if it's no news different from the last time you talked to them, just talking to them and letting them know that if you leave them in a vacuum, they're left to assume that, something's changed and they're still trying to figure it out and they don't know what to do next. And that's typically not it. The leaders are meeting and communicating. You just need to make sure that that's rolling down for the staff. A big change for me has, I've dropped a lot of my tasks and I've made a lot of time for my people, both in group settings and in individual settings, and just, seeing where they are and meeting them where they are and understanding their needs and their challenges. And as Lori said, 3 institutions under one roof. I don't have that in my house, but a lot of people do. So, just meeting people where they are and being present to support them and communicating with them has been critical.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Lexi, in 2018, you founded Unfiltered by Lexi, an online platform for young professionals to help them succeed in their career while creating the lives they want and deserve. And you also run a YouTube channel, which is super cool, I must confirm. My question is, how did COVID-19 affect young professionals? And are their challenges different from those who are senior?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think that, and I think that there are positives and negatives to both sides, right? So I'm currently mid-career, and what I learned is that, for example, for me, onboarding while COVID was very, very difficult, but I also had to take a step back and check my privilege and recognize that because I know my job and I know how to do my job, it was much easier to onboard in the midst of all the chaos. I can only imagine being 22, 23, 24 years old, and you're really just learning who you are as an adult. So you really don't know your job well, and that's totally okay. We've all been there. And then having to deal with COVID. And so what I'm hearing from young people in the next generation is they're really looking for more support because they just don't know what's going on. right? Especially interns and new college grads. The thing that happened with COVID was that many companies froze all of their hiring, which makes sense from a business perspective. When COVID hit our whole world, nobody knew what was going on. So businesses and corporations, in order to protect their assets and also figure out how do we stay alive during COVID, how do we figure things out, one of the first things to do is to freeze hiring and or either decrease the intern population, stop the intern program, decrease the number of opportunities for new college grads. While that does make sense from a business perspective, we also have to understand that we have a lot of undergraduates and a lot of new college graduates who are feeling very weary about their career, right? People who are losing internship opportunities, people who were in the middle of internship interviews and then things just suddenly stopped. And I think people who are over the new college grad hump not only have to understand that, but how can we mobilize to, number one, see where we can get them in, if we can get them in, but number two, continue to compassionately and candidly love on them and give it and find them very interesting ways or give them interesting advice on how they will still be okay. In 2008, the United States had a huge economic bomb and people still found jobs. And so when you talk to the 2008 new college grads, they always jokingly say, okay, well, I went through economic crisis. Y'all are going through a health crisis. Y'all gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm confident that we will figure it out, but I think it's very important for senior leadership and people who are older than 30 to just recognize the fear and the terrifying uncertainty that these new college grads and these young people have because their whole college career, all of their internships, they worked really hard. And then all of a sudden a pandemic happens and the dinosaurs come back and everyone's like, so psych, can't do that anymore. Figure it out, right? So what does that look like? How do we engage with them? How do we give them advice? How do we support them in something, even though we don't even know the answer? But at the very least, we have a foundation of saying, okay, I know what I have to do tomorrow to get my job done. And I think just having awareness and acknowledgement of that is very important.
Right. I totally agree. I just want to say a few words to our audience. Whenever something resonates with you, please let us know in our live chat. And if you have some questions to our speakers, please just write them in the chat and I will take the most interesting ones and ask them at the end of our conversation. Let's continue. Lori, I know on Monday you co-facilitated a campus-wide conversation on inclusion and diversity. Would you like to share something about this conversation with our audience?
Absolutely. So what we did was we asked every school at our university, we asked all the key centers to send people to one conversation. We asked this question: what have been your biggest issues? And then we asked, well, what have you discovered that works well? And what we learned is, as a manager, you might be in your role because you're great at finance, or you might be great at technology. But today, what you need to be able to master is an ever-changing climate. One day, it's about, does people's internet work at home? Then it's, oh, they need a chair because now their back hurts. And now it's mental health issues, right? And so how do you as a manager who might be schooled in something else broaden your ability to take care of people and yet also manage this complex crisis? So what we heard from the managers is that at this time more than ever, the micro moments matter. And the ability to just reach out to people over and over again, we can't underemphasize it. And in terms of some of the bright spots, in response to the horrible events against the Black community right now, one of the bright spots is because we all have been heightened in our awareness that we have to reach out to each other, that we're not just letting this be another day, just one more part of the crisis. Today is actually shut down academia, where across the country, units are taking time to consider how we've contributed to the state of the world and to figure out what we can do to move forward. And I would say that the ability to form a nationwide movement in just a short amount of time is because we've had this time to do this deep reflection and be overwhelmed and yet say, we can do this. So I'm hopeful that we will enter the next phase with this heightened awareness and redesign the new normal so it's more inclusive and that we can hold more space for more people in our lives.
Interesting. I want to believe that the time we took off to think can really contribute towards making a positive change in the world. Siri, what are some of the repetitive unconscious biases that you're observing in workplace? And are there some that are repeating, and how we can recognize them and how we can tackle them? Mm-hmm. Also in the conversation of the current COVID-19 and the Black movement.
Yeah, well, I'm an eternal optimist, and I actually think the silver lining of COVID-19 might be that it allows us to re-examine and redesign a lot of the traditional ways of working that did have a lot of unconscious bias embedded into them, and that never were really working for everyone in the first place. I loved your point, Lexi, about how people are now starting to realize that new employees and entry-level employees in organizations need more support and need more deliberate kind of hand-holding. I think they always needed that, right? But when they were physically with us in the office, we didn't have to be so thoughtful and deliberate about actually helping them to learn the work and manage the organization, because we just thought that would happen automatically since they were there. They were in the office and they were just kind of absorbing it. And now we realize that we have to be much more thoughtful and deliberate about all of these processes, whether it's hiring and onboarding, or whether it's how we evaluate people's performance and how we evaluate people for promotions and how we take into account the different circumstances that they come from. You know, someone's ability to work now who is alone at home or with another adult is very different than someone who has kids at home and they're managing virtual homeschooling and all of that stuff. And we need to decide and figure out how that gets factored into things like performance evaluations and promotions. So I actually think that this can be a very good moment as we redesign these processes and work practices to eliminate some of the unconscious biases that have been embedded into them thus far. And I also think that the increase in remote working and just flexibility for people in where and when they do their work is overall a really positive trend.
Right. I also want to believe so. Thanks a lot, Siri. Diane, I know that Charles Schwab is a good example of helping people start their career and thrive at work. I've encountered many inspiring stories when women without prior experience were taught from scratch and started and became actually a driving force of the company. That was super inspiring. So what are some of the main objectives when it comes to hiring people from diverse backgrounds, and how companies actually win when having people from diverse background, and especially supporting them during the crisis of COVID-19 and not cutting them off, of course, if they can afford that financially.
So that's a loaded question with a lot of parts. I want to start first with Chuck. Chuck Schwab is our founder, and he built this company trying to reach individuals that weren't able to invest because there weren't discount brokerages available. And so he's always had a focus to expand what we offer to everyone and everyone equally. And I think as we look at how we grew up, in the 80s in San Francisco, when the gay movement started, Schwab embraced the homosexual folks, and we employ a lot of them. And we've continued that over our history to just really look for people that are different. Diversity of thought brings so much value. We want our company to mirror what our customers look like, and we want our customers to include everyone. And so we look for a wide range of candidates. We're always looking for the best candidate. As a manager, we're encouraged to hire the best person, but we want someone that complements our team, not someone that mirrors our team. And so we're looking for people that have different skills and different views and different thoughts that strengthen us, because we know we'll be a stronger and a better company. As we look at what Schwab's done, we've invested heavily in diversity and inclusion over time. We recently restructured and hired a VP that's focused on that area. We have 13 different employee resource groups that allow us to be to create collections of people that may not be on the same team, but that may be more like me or more like one of my employees. And so, you know, as I look at my team of 24 people, I think I have 2 African Americans. However, I want them to have more African American friends or connections in the company than what's on my team. And so we have a Black professionals group, and they have an opportunity to get involved there. If that's not their interest and they want to be in the women's networking group, they can join that, or the Pride group, or the parents and employees and parents of people with disabilities. I mean, we have a veterans group. And so we try to create connection opportunities within the company for whatever people are looking for. And we share that with our new employees. We share that on our website. We share that publicly because we want to attract people that are different, that don't mirror us, but that bring incredible strengths that complement us. I think as we shift into the COVID thing, you know, that doesn't change. We're still looking for very diverse candidates. We have not changed our stance yet that we're really a brick and mortar kind of employer. And so we're not looking for telecommuters from all over. We're still looking for people that work in our locations. And so I think with the volume of layoffs and furloughs that have happened, we've got much stronger candidate pools to choose from, which gives us more diversity as well.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Dan. Love that what you're doing at Charles Schwab. Lexi, in your current role as a senior program manager at Twitter, how do you support women in tech and underrepresented groups? And how do you help ensure that everyone is treated equally?
So I want to actually take a step back and not necessarily talk about Twitter, but just talk about
your experience. Yeah.
Freedom fight. Like it's just in my career. I always tell people I was born a Black woman. I'm going to die a Black woman. So that's one subject matter of expertise that regardless of where I work, that's what it is.
That's right.
And what I always tell companies is that I'm personally really tired of this narrative of diversity and inclusion. It's cute that you have business resource groups or employee resource groups. I'm looking for retention. An employee resource group is fantastic. As a Black woman, I definitely need a safe space. But a few thoughts to that. One, the women employee resource groups seem to be very intersectional. And throughout the history, especially of this country, feminism has been white women centric, white straight women centric. And until women come together and really identify that and say that the word woman is an intersectional word, then to be very transparent with you, a lot of these employee resource groups and the women's groups are going to be white straight women centric. Two, I think it's important that while we have employee resource groups, that there is actually funding for people to fuel these groups and to make these groups as fantastic as they can be. Right now, we have many people at multiple companies, tech and non-tech, that are leading these organizations with a charge, but it's actually taking a toll on other parts of their life because this basically is a day job. So what happens when an organization actually puts in place program management positions or whatever title you'd like to call it under the D&I wing and say, this is your responsibility, taking it away from a volunteer transaction, but actually putting money towards it and saying, this is so important. We're going to hire someone to facilitate this work for our community. And then three, high level, I think it's very important to talk about retention, right? I always tell people I am a Black woman who happens to work in the tech industry, and I've worked at some of the most promising tech industries that we've seen in the past 12 years. And I'm always looking at who is in leadership. Do I have an opportunity to be promoted? I really do think that now in 2020, there is definitely systemic overt racism. I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I remember when I was in second grade and a kid came to school in a Klan outfit. Like, that is very overt racism. I currently live in California. And while I haven't seen a KKK outfit walking down the street in the San Francisco Bay Area, I am a victim of microaggressive racism and microaggressive anti-feminism. And so the real question is what is mid-level management doing to retain diversity talent, to retain people of color, to retain queer people? Because people do not leave jobs. They leave managers. And until middle management especially really understands that, and they are sponsoring and promoting and uplifting this amazing talent that they already have, then you hiring more people that look like me or more people of another employee resource group is really not going to do anything, because now we still have a caste system, right? So if everyone who looks like me or looks of a marginalized group is at the bottom, then we still have a caste system, and that's still actually not okay. So we can applaud you and give you a pat on the back for now hiring diverse talent, but I'm also not going to applaud you and give you a trophy for not retaining them and treating them the way they should be treated, because they are human and because they have the talents to run the world. And so I think that when you look at Black Lives Matter and you look at what's going all over the world right now, this is the first time in the world's history that every single state in this country has come together and protested on something so profound, and the first time in the world's history where multiple countries have also said yes. And to me, it's bigger than Black lives. It is people coming together and saying whether they are Black, whether they are marching for Black people, which I completely support and love, or whether they're marching for themselves and their own equality, they're saying that this is not okay. Right. The microaggressive behavior is not okay. And companies standing by a stance of diversity and inclusion without looking at the retention, without saying, we do not have people in the C-suite, we do not have those board members. Why is it every single marginalized person gets a month to celebrate them, but every other month we don't want to talk about how I'm marginalized? That's an issue. And that's what I really hope, if anything, that all of this marching and all of this call to action that my community has started and has led brings to the table professionally.
Wow. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Lexi. I really felt what you're feeling, and our audience also reacted to that. Many people agreed on so many points that you mentioned, and I think it's so fundamental, and we need to change and work a lot towards saying that this company is diverse and inclusive enough. And I know, Laura, that you're working with managers to help them become effective leaders. Maybe there is something that you'd like to share that in comment on what Lexi shared and how we can actually help them, because she also mentioned that employees don't leave companies, they leave managers, right? Because we work with people, first of all, company, right? But then it's like this people factor, right? That we treat each other, do we treat each other equal? How we can, maybe recognize that unconscious biases that Siri, we talked earlier with you. And maybe Laura, you want to share something more on that point?
Yeah, I loved everything you said, Lexi. And I think if that was said more often, that this world wouldn't look the way it is right now. And here's the thing about managers. People have a misperception. They think tensions translate into equity. They think that if I come to a meeting really being open, that I don't have to do additional work to see who got left out. So when I speak with managers, what I try to help them see is that it's a myth of meritocracy, that we're blind to who's not in the room. And once managers start to have a little bit of what I call a lens or a diversity inclusion lens, and they start to be who's missing, whose comment got overlooked, who got criticized for being aggressive when they behaved exactly like the person over there, and that person was told that they have executive presence. When managers can start to question the fact that their good intentions will not deliver on equity, that's when we can start to go to work. And there are two ways I often help them to block the microaggressions that Lexi talked about, called Teflon, which is someone says a comment, wow, she's really aggressive. You don't address, why are you saying that? You just say, oh, what has you say that? Because I think she's speaking in a powerful way, and not addressing the bias and deflecting it. The second response is actually to address it. You know, in our organization, we agree not to talk about people's personalities. We talk about their business skills. We know when we talk about personality, that bias creeps into it. So when I work with managers, I first debunk the myth that good intentions translate into equity. And then I talk about the different ways to act, one by just deflecting and catching and preventing bias from seeping into our decision making. And the second one is to go straight to the way we make decisions and radically change them so that we're no longer relying on things like first impressions or gut reactions, but we're using criteria thoughtfully to make decisions. Because as you said, Lexi, we are not doing enough work in our organizations to make sure that we're delivering on our good intentions. And I hope out of COVID that we will start to see that we can't ignore the way society is and hope that it gets better. We have to take action. And that's my biggest hope out of what we're going through right now.
Right. Thanks, Lori. Siri, is there something you'd like to add on to the discussion, and how do you think we can make the situation better in the current circumstances?
These have been amazing points, and I'll kind of pick up on what all three of you have been saying. There was a question in the chat a couple moments ago about how do we advance diversity? And it's a really big question because it speaks to everything that we've just discussed.
Right.
I'll offer one answer which is firmly rooted in the evidence as to what works, and that is using data to drive the change that we need to see. So to Lexi's point, retention, hiring, promotion, performance evaluation, these are all measurable things that you can actually analyze and track over time and see, are there gender gaps? Are there gaps by ethnicity? How many Black women do we have in leadership? How many Asian men do we have in leadership? These are all measurable things. Step one is to actually do the measurement and figure out where you are today. But then step two is to see the gap between today's reality and tomorrow's aspiration and where you actually know you want to be and need to be. And then set goals and make those goals public. I think the US tech industry is a good example of what happens when you just release numbers without having goals attached to them, because our biggest tech firms since 2014 have been releasing annual diversity reports. And if you take a close look at them, you'll see that the representation of women, of underrepresented ethnic racial minorities really has moved marginally in the last 6 years. And what's been missing is a public commitment where companies actually state, here's what I'm going to do in the next 3 years or 5 years. This 20% is going to move to 30%. Now you've created a mechanism of accountability, and we don't want to fail. When we set goals, research shows we're much more likely to achieve them precisely because we don't want to fail in the eyes of others. So to organizations, I say step one is collect your data and know exactly where your gender racial gaps are. And then step two, set public goals to address them, to hold yourself accountable and to actually see some change. There's a lot of great examples of places where this approach of using data as an engine for change has worked phenomenally well.
Right. Using data as an engine for change. I love that. I think more managers need to know that, and companies. And when you have data, when you have numbers, it's very hard to prove that they are not real if they are real. So thanks a lot for this very good point, Siri. Do we have any questions? Okay, we have a question from Paula Hall. Can networking and outside mentors help support minorities and women in tech? Diane, would you like to take this question? I know you do lots of mentoring and support and follow mentorship. So what do you think about this?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one avenue and one resource available to us. I love the hashtag, like, I've got a girl. And that's who we are to each other. Is hashtag I've got a girl. I've got somebody in my network. Reaching out to me is an option, and people often do, or they refer people to me. They're like, this person's looking for a mentor, and I think you might be good. And so we try to help each other and connect with each other. And, we only know our experience and our circle of influence, and getting a mentor and leveraging your network and having those conversations about how do I improve how I show up? How do I change my relationship with my boss? I mean, how do I advance in my career? There's tons of opportunities to leverage networking groups, leverage any professional organizations, meet people there, ask them to have coffee. We were talking about onboarding and how hard it is. And one thing we didn't touch on is the relationship building. So I've had to be very intentional about keeping my relationships with the people in my network and in my groups through COVID. And then I had to sit back and say, I've onboarded 12 new people since March 15th, and they're new to the firm. I have to help them with their networking just within the firm and making their connections and building those relationships. And, if you reach out and ask someone in your network for 30 minutes for a virtual coffee, 90% of the time they're going to say yes. Yeah. Schwab's hashtag is Own Your Tomorrow. And I say, own your experience, own your career, own your coffee schedule, guys, girls, reach out, ask somebody to be a mentor, know what you're looking for, because reaching out to me and asking me to perfect your resume, that's not my skill. But if you're looking for a lot of other things, I can help you, and other women in your network can help you. If you don't ask, you're assuming the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And True. Shame on True. You.
Yeah.
Own your tomorrow, own your experience, reach out, ask for a mentor, get involved in a networking group. The great thing right now with COVID is almost all of the networking groups are meeting online. So if you want to join my group, the Women in Technology, Austin Women in Technology, you can join from anywhere in the world and attend our meeting. So, figure out where you want to connect, get on LinkedIn, look at the events, look on Facebook, go to, Eventbrite, Meetup. There's a ton of places to find connections and meet new people and ask to have coffee. And then a month later, ask to have coffee again. And pretty soon you can ask them to help you with your career.
I love that.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think what Diane said was brilliant. And to add on to it, I also want to make it clear the definition of a mentor. I always tell people there's a difference between an elder and a mentor and a sponsor. And you need all three, okay? An elder is someone who is wiser than you, may not be older than you. I use the term elder because that's deep-rooted in that community. It is someone who is wiser than you in your career, who you can go to and say things like, my boss is getting on my nerves, who you can go to and say, I don't think my pay is right, so I'm going to get better pay, right? You can talk about all these things because you've developed this relationship with this person. This person sees you more than just an employee. They see all these assets from you. You feel comfortable talking about all these assets in your life, right? They're like a mentor plus. A mentor is someone you go to very strategically and you say, hey, Diane, can we talk about upward mobility at Schwab? That's a mentor question. You are very specific about your intention. Remember, everybody and their mom is calling Diane. Diane is the bee's knees. We don't have time to have an elder conversation with every single person who contacts us. And I say that compassionately, right? And then a sponsor is someone you go to and say, hey, so I really want to do that speaking engagement next week. And I know that you know the producer. And they're like, that's a text message. No big deal. Right. And so I think it's also very important as you grow your career just to know the differences is that a mentor can be someone that you go to months for a coffee. I'm currently, because of COVID, like knee deep in masterclass, which by the way, I recommend everybody getting a subscription. And during Anna Wintour's masterclass, she specifically said, I'm not your mom. I'm a mentor that you call every 4 months. And when you call me, make it a good question. And this is Anna Wintour. So she was very direct, but it very much resonated with my spirit because what she was saying is that if there's something that you think I can directly help with, because I'm the editor-in-chief of Vogue, come to me. Don't call me once a week. Don't do it. I'm not going to answer. Right? And then what's going to happen is that when you call me every week, the time that you actually need me, probably not going to answer that either. Right? So I think we need to make some differences and some different definitions of like elder, mentor, sponsor. And you need to have a collection of all of them, of all genders, of all races, of all different walks of life, but really make that distinction. Do not treat your mentor as an elder unless that relationship has stepped up into eldership, right? And make it clear. And the fun fact is your mentor will let you know when they become an elder because they're going to reach out to you, right?
Wow.
And that's the difference. When they start reaching out to you and saying, on, right? It's like, oh, we've now moved into a different tax bracket. This is wonderful, right? But just want to put that out there.
Well, these are good points. I love that. Elder, mentor, sponsor, and you need them all, right? So ladies, one final piece of advice from each of you. One sentence. Siri. Oh, we don't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, okay, we hear you. Okay, okay, now we can hear you.
Sorry about that. I was going to say it's so hard to follow all these great comments in one sentence. I noticed in the chat there's a lot of questions about if I'm looking for a job right now or if I'm early in my career, what's your advice? Distilling a lot of the things that have already been said is you are in the driver's seat of your own career. Ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, you will not. So reach out, ask questions, ask for a promotion, ask for an opportunity to present in front of senior people, ask for an opportunity to take on an extra project you have the bandwidth. You have to ask, and manage your own trajectory. And you'll get there.
Right. Thanks a lot, Siri. Diane?
Don't wait. So many people think COVID's a period of time and we're going back to normal. There's no going back. We're going forward, girls. Yeah. And we got each other and we're going to support each other as we do this. And if you wait for your next opportunity, for your next ask, you're just sitting on your laurels. You know, you're just coasting. And this is a great opportunity to grow, leverage your extra time. Don't wait. Do what you need to do now. Figure it out. Move forward. We got this.
Woohoo. Lori, final piece of advice from you.
You know, things that I think I'm really good at and things that I would say, gosh, I've never done that before. And I think right now is the time to build tools in your tool belt to figure out what have I not explored? I've been reading different books. I've been trying different things. Zoom is pretty low cost to try like different expressions of myself. And I hope I leave this period bolder. And I hope every single person at this conference leaves a little bolder with more expressions and more tools in your tool belt. We need them now because it's really complex, but it'll help you in the long term to have a lot at your fingertips. So be bold.
Right. Thanks, Lori. Lexi?
Final advice is virtual coffee 101. So when I started onboarding to Twitter, because remember, I joined Twitter when the apocalypse started. What I did was that about 6 weeks in, after really getting to know my manager and my team and the expectations of me, I contacted a few people that I knew before I joined Twitter who worked at Twitter. And I said, I need 4 names of people that I need to connect with. And they gave me names. And then I went on our message channel and I said, so-and-so said that I should connect with you. Let's do a coffee. And so I've been at Twitter for 98 days now, my claim to fame. And I've actually had over 30 virtual coffees with people because every time I talk to them, I say like, who else should I meet? Who's cool? And that's been the most transformative thing that I've ever done in my career. So since COVID has completely changed our world and this whole idea of working from home is getting more and more real every single day, if I can relay one thing to you is be virtual coffee consistent. The people that you meet, you have no clue who they know. And who knows, you may end up talking to the CEO of the company because this random person who you talk to knows the CEO of the company. And I cannot stress that to you enough. Yeah.
This is so true. Use and leverage your network and the network of the people you know, right?
Exactly. Manipulate mine. Exactly.
I love that. Ladies, that was super interesting and insightful. Siri, Diane, Lexi, Lori, thank you very much for this interesting, energizing, energetic conversation. Thanks for being honest and authentic with our audience. I think everyone just loved it. So many practical advice people are sharing, very inspiring. Thanks a lot for tuning in for this panel. I'm wishing you all lots of health. Stay curious, follow advice that our experts shared with you, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anna. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.